In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. اصبروا شوية لما أخلص الكلمتين بالإنجليزي هقولهم تاني بالعربي. Today we have the last Sunday of the month of Misra. And the next Sunday will be the last Sunday of the whole Coptic year. So these are the last 2 Sundays of the Coptic year. You know, Nairuz is coming, so it's going to be 14 days, maybe less than 14 days. So the beginning of the Coptic year is coming very soon. So the last 2 Sundays, the church dedicated to a subject the people who study theology know as eschatology. Say, what's this, Abuna? Curse word? Eschatology. What's eschatology? The study, the discipline of the end of times. Subject that from the time of the prophets, even before Christ, people have been thinking about and wondering. What will happen at the end of times? Will we go on forever and ever and ever in this? Or there's going to be something happening to this existence, to that mode of existence? It's going to kind of come to end? The disciples asked Jesus one time about this. And it is in Mark 13 and Matthew 24. Very famous chapter in Matthew, just keep it in your mind. How many chapters in Matthew? 28. Chapter 24, 4 chapters before the resurrection, before the end of the gospel, Jesus speaks about eschatology. He's giving us hints. Is he interested for us to know? Yes. Does Jesus want us to know about what will happen at the end of times? Absolutely yes. In turn, we need to study what he had said. What do we say in the creed? At the very end of the creed, what do we say? We believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. We confess one baptism for the remission of sins. We await the resurrection of the dead and the life of the age to come. For we do await that. No one who loves Jesus would say, I want to stay here. You really truly love him, like anybody who you miss, and your heart is like, there is a tug there to go to him. You're going to be looking for the resurrection of the dead as something very good, excellent, something desirable more than anything else. Let me tell you about this. So today we have this reading from Mark, and it's Mark 13, which very much correlates to Matthew 24. And I'm going to go to Matthew because we already listened to Mark. I'm going to go to Matthew and pick up something more. In Mark, the story is that Jesus is sitting on the mountain of Olives, opposite the temple. Anybody here went to the Holy Land? Yeah. What's the best view of Jerusalem? From the mountain of Olives, across. The Jerusalem is on a hill called Mount Zion. There's a little valley. Then you go to a bigger hill. They call it mountain there because they don't have real mountains. And it's the mountain of Olives, Mount Zion, and you can see the temple. And today we have the Dome of the Rock. The Muslims have put their mosque on top of the place where the temple is, which kills the Jews internally. So they have the Dome of the Rock, which has a golden dome, very famous from the pictures. And then you climb, you go down to Valley of Kidron, come up, and there's the mountain of Olives. You sit there, you see Jerusalem under you. You see that's the picture you find on the internet. So it says here, he sat on the mountain of Olives, on this high hill, looking down at the temple. Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, when will these things be? What are they talking about? And what will be the sign when all these things will be fulfilled? That's why I want to give you, this is a very summarized version of what they asked. Really asked something more than that. And why did they ask it? So I'm going to go to Matthew. Matthew gives a little bit more details about the circumstances of this question. They did not question the Lord out of nothing. He had said something, made them have that question. It was actually on Palm Sunday, after Jesus going through Jerusalem and people shouting for him, Hosanna, Hosanna, that he went out from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. The temple was very impressive. I want to tell you, Herod the Great, which is the one who killed the Bethlehem children who wanted to kill Jesus, was a master builder. Made a lot of big buildings, and this is one of them. It's a monument. Very impressive. So the disciples were showing Jesus, look how big these buildings are. And what did Jesus say? Do you not see all these things? Assuredly means for sure. I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. And true enough, there is no stones of the building left except that one wall. One wall. It's a retaining wall. Anybody here understand what's a retaining wall? A wall you build to keep the soil from falling. That was not done to build the temple on top of that soil. And what do they call this wall today? The crying wall or the wailing wall. You see the Jews standing in front of it doing this, in front of the wall, and saying their lamentations about the temple. So Jesus had prophesied this 40 years before it happened. And then he sat on the mountain of Olives. That's the scene we saw in Mark. The disciples came to him privately, saying, so what did he say? The temple will be destroyed, not one stone will remain. So to continue the discussion that was in the temple, now they left the temple, they left Jerusalem, climbed up the mountain of Olives, and he sits there. They're asking him a follow-up question. Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming? And of the end of the age? Okay, wait a second here. Anybody can tell me what the disciples thinking? Exactly. That the time of the destruction of the temple means the end of the world. To the Jews, that's correct. And that's a question that they will never be able to answer. How come that the temple is down and we still have time? 2,000 years later. They have no answer. I have done that before. I've asked Jewish people about how do you think about this? The temple should be the end of time. When it's done, it's done. It's almost like your stopwatch. The temple is a stopwatch. You stop it, everything stops. So they have the same idea. Tell us, when will these things, the temple will be knocked down, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? This is the question that in answering it in the Gospels, the two stories got mixed up. The story of the temple and the story of the end of the time. So when you read it, don't get confused. It seems like the two are actually made into one story because the question was both of them at the same time. Until the Gospel was written, that was the belief, the expectations. Okay? And then Jesus answered and said, take heed that no one deceives you. And he speaks about many people will come in his name saying, I'm the Christ. It happened then, at that time. Many people came, and the book of Acts speak about that. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, keep in mind. Famines, pestilences, earthquakes in various places. Just keep that order in your mind. Wars, then what? Famines, and then pestilences. He means any way the person can die by any kind of sickness, diseases, mass murder. These are all pestilences. And earthquakes is number 4. Let me go with you the book of Revelation, see what the book of Revelation, so you can understand exactly how the books are in harmony. They're all saying the same thing. In chapter 6 of Revelation, which we know that's talking about the end of times to come, part of it, not all of it. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, come and see. I think this is a beautiful verse. It's in John, and in the Revelation it says, especially our church, when you want somebody to come and know about the church, you don't tell them, you don't give them, sit them and give them a lecture. What's the best thing you say?
Come and see.
Come and see. You cannot be knowing anything about the church without being in the church, participating in it. So what this is saying about invitation from the heavenly beings, the four living creatures, to John, come and see. And then he came and saw, and I looked, behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering and to conquer. And everybody says this was Christ, the coming of Christ and his resurrection. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, come and see. Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and the people should kill one another, and there was given to him great sword. What's that? Wars. Fighting, which ends up like the World War II, and a huge number of people, like millions, died. And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, come and see. So I looked at him, behold, black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales. You know Lady Justice with the blindfolded, what does she have in her hand? Pair of scales. And to weigh things, to measure things. And the third living creature said, I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius. A quart of wheat. That's not a big measure. You know what's a quart? Your milk measure. But you get a quart for a denarius. Denarius is a whole day wage for a laborer. You work a whole day to get your milk jar full of wheat. Would that be enough to feed a family? Not at all. What is he talking about? A famine. And 3 quarts of barley a little cheaper, for a denarius. And do not harm the oil and the wine. And when we opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, come and see. And I looked, behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death. A lot of pestilences. And Hades followed with him, and power was given to them over the fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Any kind of death that would do mass destruction. And he opened the fifth seal, and I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God. This is martyrs. And Jesus is going to speak about it. And he's telling the church, martyrdom will be going on from one generation to another as a witness to the whole earth. And the sixth one. And when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake. I doubt that's the original Greek. Because what's really happening? He's not describing, it's an earthquake of the earth, but mainly what's happening, the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its late figs when it's shaken by a mighty wind. What's he describing is something in heaven, not an earthquake. So it seems to be more like a heaven quake. You go back to the gospel that we read today. And he's talking about earthquakes. What I see is the same between the two, between the book of Revelation and the Gospels, and how the two are actually giving the same image. Jesus is giving us multiple events that's happening in the world that will be signs for the end. But to tell you the truth, I am more and more inclined to think this is a cyclical pattern. You get wars, then you follow by famines, they follow by plagues, and they follow by earthquakes, and there's martyrdom going on all the time. You know, you heard about the earthquake in Turkey 3-4 years ago, 2 years ago. 40,000 people was killed. 40,000. And you hear then Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Palestinians, these are all things that's going on from one generation to another. So it's more of a cyclical nature. It doesn't happen one time. But it seems like toward the end, will have this cycle become very exaggerated, much more. Okay? Now, so he's saying it the same way. He says, nation will go against nation, wars, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be earthquakes, various places. There will be famines and troubles. He's saying it in a very short way in Mark. Mark is very short. And then he's talking about the martyrdom. Watch for yourselves, for they will deliver you up to councils. You'll be beaten in the synagogues. And he's talking about the preaching of the gospel everywhere. That's one of the problems that we need to focus on. There's still places on earth the gospel did not go to. And to me, the invention of the internet, which was in the 80s, and the accessibility to information and communication will make this happen faster than anybody can think. There's no corner on earth does not have internet access. So this is something to think about. And he's saying that brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. He's predicting martyrdom. That's the fifth seal. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. So this happened twice. This has happened before in the time of Jesus. After he left, the church was persecuted. And then he's saying something specifically about Jerusalem, but it might also mean something about the end of times. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not, and he puts in parentheses, let the reader understand. Hint, hint, to those of us who wants to think. What was that? He said, if you see that, he called it the abomination of desolation. What's an abomination? Something very disturbing. Something, what's an abomination? Hateful? Disgusting? You might say that. Desolation. What's desolation? Destruction. Annihilation. So what is this? So 40 years after Jesus ascended to heaven, 40 years, maybe 37, 70 AD, they made the Jews, especially the Zealots, a group called the Zealots were revolutionists, refused the occupation of the Romans. And they started killing a lot of the soldiers and doing a lot of uprising against Caesar. So the emperor of Rome at the time sent, and we're talking about Nero, sent a general, his name was Titus, besieged Jerusalem with almost 1.5 million Jews inside. And those who came to the feast could not come out. Josephus is talking about it as horrific. I would not recommend reading what he said about it because there's a lot of imagery that is not easy to forget. One of the simplest way, the people inside of Jerusalem after a year of siege started eating dead bodies, and they will fight over it. Dead bodies of animals, dead bodies of humans. Parents would eat their dead children to survive that siege. Right? Jesus said, by the way, 1.5 million Jews were killed in this siege. Not a single Christian died. Because all of them remembered what Jesus had said. What did they see for them to run away? They said, the first thing Titus did, before he comes with the army to besiege the city, he took the banner of the Roman Empire, which was the eagle, the brass eagle, and put it right in the temple, where ought to be no one putting any flag in that place. When they saw this, the Christians said, uh-oh, that's what Jesus talked about. Let us go. You hear a tone of this in the letter to the Hebrews. When the letter to the Hebrews for the first time ever says, guys, we have no city here. Oh, I thought that Jerusalem was given to us by God. This is the city of a great king, of David. where the temple is. Why we should leave it? You guys are traitors. Imagine, in a family, there is a priest, a family of priests, a priest who followed Christ and became a Christian, another, his brother and his cousins are still Jewish priests serving in the temple. So that one Christian priest said, I'm leaving. So you're a traitor, the brothers would say. You're leaving the city of God, you're leaving the city of David and the temple. We will die here. And he said, no, we don't have here a remaining city. Our city is waiting for us up with Jesus, wherever the king is. And this is what he said. If you see that banner of the Roman Empire in the temple, everyone should run. And that's what they did. So he said, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Why is he saying let the reader understand? Because he's not going to be. It doesn't come to his heart, it's not agreeable with him, Matthew, that he would say the Roman banner will be in the temple. It will break him down, break everybody he reads, and they will be shocked. But he says, I'll let you to understand this. So, let him who is in the housetop not go down into the house, nor enter to take anything out of his house, and let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. Don't waste time. It's going to be very quickly. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight might not be in the winter. For in those days there will be tribulations, and this is what he's going to talk about. And then he'd speak about, and he said, but take heed, see, I have told you all things beforehand. But in those days, after that tribulation, then he's talking about the other question, the second coming. And they're mixed together because the questions were mixed together. And the topic in the mind of the apostles at the time were mixed together, but the church can differentiate those. Then he talks about the coming of the Son of Man on the clouds, and then the resurrection. Now, let me just say this, what we should do with this. First, I think I want to focus very quickly, I'm not going to keep you much, but here, this word, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel, prophet, standing where it ought not. I want to focus about this, standing where it ought not. The presence of something does not belong. Imagine. I come here on the altar, and I put big TV, and we come watch an action movie. How would you feel about it? It is this TV going to tell me, this TV does not belong here, nor here, by the way. This should not. I mean, sometimes I come to the church and I look at the TV screen, and it has, you know how Apple TV is or Chromecast? Advertisement about movies. They might be naked people, they might be violence on the iconostasis. That's a side point. Where it ought not. Do you see something, because we're coming to the end of time, so definitely. Do you see things standing where it ought not? Do you have something in your home stands where it ought not? Do you have something in your heart staying where it ought not? And the more I bring in stuff into my life, and I'm not careful where they belong, these things are bringing in. So, what would that be for the end of times? What would this standing where it ought not be at the end of times? It will not, because there is no temple now. I will tell you one thing, it will be in the church. The church will have things where it ought not, and we're getting more of that. Our hearts, which should be the temple of the Holy Spirit, we have things in it where it ought not. Our homes. This is very serious. With the coming, with the invention of more communication tools, there's a lot of things that stand where it ought not. I tell the deacons, it's terrible. I heard I don't have time to leave here and go and attend liturgies in other churches, that deacons, hopefully not the priest, deacons are sitting texting on their phones while liturgy is going on. This is definitely standing where it ought not. That's why I say don't take your phone with you to the altar. At least to the altar. I would say silence it when you come to the church, because it shouldn't stand where it ought not. This is God's time. There is more of that. More of that. Before the invention of the cell phone and the internet, we didn't have that. Yes, they are very useful, but they have their place. You should not be standing where they ought not. Think about God's time. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I said, why do we pray? Because it's fair. It's fair to say to God, thank you. It's really unfair for God to do all what God had done, creating, supporting, and saving. And in return, I don't say thank you to the Lord at least every day. At least once. What is standing where it ought not? I wake up and open my eyes and I'm immediately on my phone. And then I forget. God becomes number two. I push him aside and I put my cell phone. I put my social media. Isn't that standing where it ought not? There's a lot of that. And if we really honest and serious with ourselves, we're going to see this happening more and more. We get used to it, and this is what will happen. It will happen openly. It will happen openly. And nobody will have any objection. And it started to happen, by the way. See it in all kinds of Christian gatherings. A lot of that happens. So I want us to think today about, yes, the end of times is going to come, but Jesus is giving us signs. One of them is this abomination of desolation, something that should not be there, and it is there. That is a big sign. What is that? He said that's the writing on the wall. What do we mean by that? A sign of destruction. You, especially you, the people of God, consecrated, that Jesus died for them, and you're baptized, you put on Christ, and you are dedicated. You have things that doesn't belong to him take his place. Think about that. What would be in the world? If that's us who are the holy people of God, and what would you think the world will have? If we are the hope of the world, the more things go down within us, the more I am sure it will be the end. Let me show you something about this. So it's about the prayer, especially prayer time and prayer dedication. Let me show you something from the book of Luke, from the Gospel of Luke, about what Jesus' expectation is for the end of times. Then he spoke a parable to them, that men always ought to pray. You see ought here? Ought not, ought. To pray and not lose heart, saying, there was in a certain city a judge who did not fear God nor regard man. Now there was a widow in that city, and she came to him saying, get justice for me from my adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterward he said within himself, though I do not fear God nor regard man, yet because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. Then the Lord ended this parable and turned to the people and said, hear what the unjust judge said. And shall God not avenge his own elect who cry out day and night to him, though he bears long with them? What's he saying? You have lost trust in God that you stop praying? Don't you think that even a bad judge will respond if the person is persistent? You think God is a bad judge? And shall God not avenge his own elect who cry out? Avenge means I'm fighting so hard, Lord, help me. I have an adversary that keeps bothering me and bugging me and want me to do and break your commandments. Help me. And this is how the response is. I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, listen to this. This is the sentence I'm actually bringing this for. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on earth? Okay, what's he saying? He says two things here. Faith is shown in prayer persistence. And the second thing he's saying, when he comes, he expects to find nobody praying. That's what he expects. I think it's an ironic, they call it ironic question. It's a rhetorical question that actually answers itself. When the Son of Man come, will he find peace on earth? If you know that your child does not make up their bed, and you know that this is their habit, and then you tell them, okay, if I come up now to your room, will I find you make your bed? What do you mean? I'm not expecting it. So when he comes, will he find faith and persistent prayer? Which means to me, when Jesus comes, one of the big signs of his coming, prayer is going down. That's one of the signs. And it's replaced by something else that ought not to be there. Think about this. Okay, let me say the two words in Arabic. المختصر بتاع الكلمتين. النهارده والاسبوع الجاي هنتكلم على الرسالة بتاعت الإنجيل والعلم اللي بيسموه علم الإسخاتولوجي، اللي هو علم الأخرويات أو الأخرويات، اللي هو آخر الأمور، ما تنتهي إليه الزمن، ما ينتهي إليه الدهر، انتهاء الدهر، اللي احنا بنقول عليه في قانون الإيمان، وننتظر قيامة الأموات وحياة الدهر الآتي. ربنا كلمنا على الموضوع ده في الأناجيل بالذات، مرقس ولوقا ومتى ومرقس ولوقا، بيتكلم فيه عن نهاية العالم. امتى اتكلم؟ في موقف معين مهم جدا، بعد حد الزعف، لما طلع من اورشليم وطلع جبل الزيتون وقعد قدام البتاع ده. كلنا اللي راح فينا القدس هيعرف المكان ده، وفي صور له على الانترنت بيتصور منه اورشليم، وبتشوف فيها القبه الذهبيه بتاعت المسجد بتاع المسلمين، حطوه فوق المعبد. لما ربنا بص على المعبد وهو خارج، قالوا له التلاميذ بص الحجاره، بص المباني، قال لهم اللي انتوا شايفينه ده مش هيفضل منه حجر على حجر، فاتخضوا جدا. فلما خرج من الهيكل وخرج من اورشليم وطلع جبل الزيتون وباصص، يقال في الاناجيل الثانيه انه عيط، بكى على اورشليم وقال كم من مره اردت ايه ان اجمع اولادك كما تجمع دجاجه فراخها تحت جناحي ولم تريدوا، وذا بيتكم يترك لكم خرابا. فهنا شاف القصه دي، شافها، فالتلاميذ اتخضوا، قالوا طب امتى هيحصل ده؟ في متى يقول لك وامتى يكون مجيئك ونهايه العالم؟ وراحوا عاملين ايه؟ خلطوا الاثنين مع بعض في السؤال، لان اليهود عندهم فكره ان يوم ما الهيكل يتهد هتبقى ايه؟ نهايه العالم. فجي ربنا قعد وقال لهم وفسر لهم الاثنين، قال لهم هتحصل حروب واخبار حروب ومجاعات واوبئه وزلازل. هتيجي تلاقوا في سفر الرؤيا بيتكلم على 4 حاجات: حروب واخبار حروب ومجاعات واوبئه وزلازل وشهاده، للمسيحيين هيستشهدوا كتير قوي في طول الوقت. ونشوف السايكل دي زي دايره كده بتدور، شويه حروب، وبعدين يجي بقى بعدها غلا ومجاعات، وبعدين يجي بعدها امراض واوبئه، وبعدين يجي بعدها زلازل، وهكذا، وتفضل تدير الدوره دي هتفضل تحصل كده لغايه لما يجي واحده منهم هتبقى كبيره جدا، وهتبقى اقوى من كل الدورات اللي فاتت دي، اللي هيبقى فيها زي بالظبط يسموها كده في الكتاب المقدس اللي يقرا الانبياء كويس يقول لك ايه، زي الطلقه على الوالده. حد فيكم ولد اقصد او شاف ولاده؟ الطلقه على الوالده ازاي؟ بيجي الاول وجع في الظهر من ورا خفيف، وبعدين المره الاولانيه الست ما تاخدش بالها، لكن المره الثانيه بتبقى عارفه. اول ما يجي في ورا الخفيف بيجي، بعدين يجي بعدها ب6 ساعات، وبعدين يجي بعدها ب4 ساعات، وبعدين بساعتين، وبعدين كل ايه 3 دقايق لغايه لما العيل يطلع. فهو وانس ابتدى لازم ايه يكمل لغايه لما العيل يتولد. فكانوا بيسموها كده ان النهايه بتاعت العالم هتكون زي الطلق بتاع اللي بتولد، هتبتدي الاوجاع الاول وجع، وبعدين يجي وجع بعديه تاني، وبعدين اشد شويه، وبعدين بعد كده بوم 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 انتل لغايه لما الكنيسه تتولد وتطلع من هنا وتروح السماء. هو ده المنظر. فالدوره دي موجوده بتلف. الحاجه اللي قالها ربنا مهمه وانا عايز اركز عليها النهارده، هي او اللي انا ركزت عليها، هي حته واذا رايتم ركسه الخراب. ايه ركسه الخراب؟ الركسه دي يعني حاجه ركسه، يعني ايه؟ واحد يقول حاجه ركسه، حاجه مقرفه ومش مقدسه، حاجه مش مقدسه ومقرفه، زي الصنم، اشكال الاصنام. فقالوا اذا رايتم ركسه الخراب قائمه حيث لا ينبغي يعني المكان اللي ما ينفعش تحط فيه حاجه زي كده خالص، احطها في اي حته تانية. اذا شفتوا ده، وبعدين كتبها في انجيل متى ليفهم القارئ بين قوسين، مش هقولها لكم بطريقه ايه مكشوفه، فكر فيها ونستناها وبص عليها لما تيجي، واول ما تشوفها تعمل ايه؟ اجري، اهرب من اورشليم، ما تقعدش هناك. وده اللي حصل سنه 70 ميلاديه. الجماعه الغيورين في اليهوديه قاموا ثورات كتيره جدا وقتلوا رومان قد كده، اللي خلت الامبراطور الروماني اي ثينك نيرون، متهيألي نيرون، بعت تيتوس الجنرال بتاعه الكبير، اول حاجه حطها راح حاطط النسر الروماني في الهيكل، بدل ما الهيكل المقدس بتاع ربنا، راح حاطط لهم النسر الروماني اللي يعتبر العلامه بتاعت الرومان وقياده الالهه كلها هناك، حطها لهم في الهيكل. فطبعا المسيحيين اللي سمعوا ربنا شافوا دي عملوا ايه؟ جريوا، محدش فيهم قعد. اصحابهم واهلهم وكده اللي هم لسه يهود وما امنوش، قالوا لهم انتوا خونه، هتسيبوا المدينه المقدسه والهيكل؟ احنا هنموت هنا. قالوا لهم لا، احنا مالناش هنا. دي سفر العبرانيين، رساله العبرانيين، لما قال بولس الرسول ليس لنا هنا مدينه بقى، بيكلم مين؟ بيكلم الكهنه المسيحيين اللي من اصل يهودي، اللي كانوا كهنه في الهيكل ومش قادرين يفكروا بالطريقه دي. قال لهم خلوا بالكم، احنا مالناش هنا مدينه باقيه، الملك بتاعنا يسوع ابن داوود ونقل الحكم بتاعه للسماء، فما ما يفرقش معانا بقى اورشليم يحصل لها. فمش 1.5 مليون يهودي. لو قريتوا يوسيفوس المؤرخ، القرايه صعبه، فانا ما ارجحش ان انت تقرا الحته دي، هي بتاعت حروب اليهود وضد الرومان وخراب اورشليم. قعد الحصار لدرجه الناس ابتدت تاكل الجيف من الجوع، والستات كانوا ياكلوا العيال اللي بيموتوا منهم لانهم مش عارفين ياكلوهم، فيطبخوهم ياكلوهم. الدنيا كانت صعبه جدا 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 جدا، وقال ان الكلام ده صعب، ما حصلش قبل كده. وبعدين كل المسيحيين نجوا، 1.5 مليون يهودي ماتوا، والمسيحيين كلهم ما حدش فيهم حصل له حاجه. هنا عايز اقول لكم بس الحته بتاعت ركسه الخراب في المكان الذي لا ينبغي، يعني تحط في حته مش بتاعتها، ودي حاجه لينا احنا. نفس اللي اتكلم عليه ربنا يسوع المسيح للهيكل هيحصل في نهايه العالم. مفيش هيكل دلوقتي، فهنتكلم على ايه؟ على الكنيسه، هي الهيكل بتاع ربنا. هتكلم عن ايه؟ عن قلب كل واحد فيكم حيث يسكن الروح القدس، اللي الكنيسه حطته جواكم بالميرون، واللي المسيح مات عشان يتحط جواكم، وعشان تبقوا انتوا هياكل الله وروح الله ساكن فيكم. ايه بقى اللي واقف هناك؟ لا ينبغي. ايه الحاجه المقززه اللي قاعده هناك وهي لا ينبغي ان تكون؟ اللي هي ركسه الخراب. ليه بنسميها ركسه الخراب؟ اما تشوفها اعرف ان الدنيا ايه؟ هتخرب. ايه اللي موجود في القلب؟ ايه اللي موجود في الكنيسه؟ تخيلوا كده، انا قلت بالانجليزي اقولها، اجيب تلفزيون واحطه هنا ونفتح الستر ونتفرج على فيلم ايه؟ اكشن. نتفرج على فيلم الاكشن، هتقولوا لي ايه؟ لا يا ابونا ده مش مكانه، ما ينفعش، ده قاعد حيث لا ينبغي. نفس القصه بالنسبه للقلب. انا ببتدي اشوف بقى ان العالم والحاجات بتاعت العالم ابتدت تسرح بقى جوه وبره. جوه في القلب، والعلامات اللي بره زيها بالظبط. نجيب تلفزيونات تحطهم في الكنيسه، اخش الكنيسه مره من المرات الاقي ايه؟ دعايات، ستات عريانه على التي في، على حجاب الهيكل. مش هقول بقى كنيسه تانية بتعمل ايه، يعني مثلا كنايس تحط الفرح واللي بيتعمل في الفرح على حجاب الهيكل، المكان اللي بنحط عليه الصليب، وجنبه المعازيم والعروس والعريسه والعروسه. ايه ده؟ ايه ده؟ مش ده قائم حيث لا ينبغي؟ ولا انتوا مش معايا في القصه دي؟ قائم حيث لا ينبغي. anyway، الحته بتاعت القلب بقى اهم منها، ان مكان القلب اللي المفروض يبقى فيه صلاه اصبح فيه حاجات تانية. ومع التقدم بتاع اللي احنا فيه ده، اللي احنا بنسميه تقدم واحنا فرحانين بيه قوي، ابتدت العالم وكل ما فيه يدخل لاوضتي، اوضه النوم اللي ربنا قال متى اردت ان تصلي فايه؟ ادخل فين؟ مخدعك واغلق بابك. طب اغلق بابك على ايه؟ ده انا دخلت العالم معايا، باب ايه بقى يا ربنا؟ خلاص مفيش بيبان، اتخلعت البيبان، اتشالت. ولما جه ربنا اتكلم على مثل الصلاه وقال يوجد، كان في لوقا 18، احفظوا الحته دي عشان ده مثل مهم قوي. قال كان راجل قاضي ظالم وما يعرفش ربنا، وعايز يقول لنا اصعب شيء في الدنيا واحد قوي جدا، قاضي ده بيكون الملك، وكانت بتجيله ارمله غلبانه فقيره ما عندهاش حد وملهاش معارف وملهاش محسوبيات، فتيجي للقاضي تقول له انصفني، انا عندي حد سرقني. قال لك لا دي ست مش هتفرق معانا دي، وقعد ساكت سايبها سايبها، فضلت تيجي وراها لغايه لما زهقته. فقال القاضي لنفسه مع اني انا راجل ما بخافش ربنا وما عنديش مخافه من حد ومش قادر بقى اسكت، لان الست دي عامله ايه؟ قرفاني في عيشتي، مش سايباني اتهنى بحاجه، فخليني بقى انصفها واخلص منها عشان ايه؟ تروح مطرح ما تروح وانا اشوف حالي. فراح ربنا رده قال كده، قال شوفوا بقى القاضي الظالم اللي ما يعرفش ربنا عمل ايه مع الست دي لما ألحت عليه. افلا ينصف الله اللي بيحبنا؟ مش قاضي ظالم ابدا، ربنا عمره ما كان ظالم. افلا ينصف الله المختارين، الناس اللي بيحبهم، الصارخين اليه ليلا نهارا وليلا، احق اقول لكم انه ينصفهم سريعا. يعني ما تفكروش في ربنا انه مطنش عليكم، فما تسيبوش الصلاه. بعدين قال سؤال بقى، ده اللي انا عايزه، سؤال جميل جدا. قال كده، هو سؤال يسموه ايه؟ سؤال ما اعرفش بالعربي يسموه ايه، استنكاري. ثانك يو. سؤال استنكاري. لعل ابن الانسان متى جاء على الارض، اللي هي مجيء التاني، يجد الايمان على الارض. ده الملخص بتاع المثل. يعني اللي عملته الست ده يمثل ايه؟ الصلاه اللي كانت بتعمله الملح ده كان بيمثل الايه؟ الايمان. فكان ربنا بيقول لهم لما اجي، بقول لنا احنا كلنا لما اجي اللي هيحصل بجد مش هيبقى فيه ايه؟ صلاه، ومش هيبقى فيه ايمان، وبالتالي لعدم وجود ايمان يقول ما فيش صلاه. طب هيبقى ايه في يا رب؟ هيبقى في سوشيال ميديا، هيبقى في اشكال من الحاجات التانية اللي هي ابتدت تخش جوانا جامد وتقعد في المكان الذي حيث لا ينبغي. الهيكل، القلب الجوه اللي بتطلع منه رغباتي من فضله القلب، القلب الغويط جدا اللي ما حدش يعرفه غير انت وربنا بس، اللي هو شايفه. باصص ربنا على القلب ولاقي فيه ايه؟ هو ده السؤال النهارده. واذا عرفنا ان هي بيسميها رقصه الخراب، يعني لما تشوفها تعرف وراها في ايه؟ ما هي كده. لما شافوا البتاع دي المسيحيين قال لك نجري، احنا مش هنقعد هنا. هي دي العلامه. اذا راينا ركسه الخراب حيث لا ينبغي فمعناها ان جاي وراها ايه؟ خراب. فقال لا يحصل ايه في اخر العالم؟ في اخر العالم هيبطل الصلاه. كنايس هتحول زي ما شايفين في اوروبا. الكنائس الكبيره في اوروبا شكلها ايه؟ في كنائس صغيره وناس بتصلي، لكن الكنائس الكبيره كلها ايه؟ متاحف. ادي التقدم، وادي الناس المتنوره، وادي الناس اللي اعظم الكريمه بتاعت البشريه هناك في اوروبا. يا فرحتي لما وصلوا للعظمه بتاعتهم وكل حاجه مستتبه واحنا بنقدر نوفر كل حاجه، مش محتاجين ربنا، نروح نعمل بيه ايه؟ دي رقصه الخراب، هي دي. لإلهنا كل المجد الاب والابن والروح.